the question of the pupil. You have said that Gurdjieff was not teaching psychology, but was teaching about the structure of man, the ordinary man. And that one of the structures in the ordinary man, which Gurdjieff writes about throughout his writings, is the structural situation that we have two consciousnesses having nothing in common. By this we understand it as we have two conscious minds and they have nothing in common. At one point Gurdjieff says almost nothing in common, later on absolutely nothing in common. So we have two minds, two consciousnesses having nothing in common. But you have said that if we take this in the way it is ordinarily understood, that is to say, as, for example, Freud would take it, conscious mind and an unconscious mind, or young conscious mind and a subconscious mind, this is deceptive, or this can be deceptive. Could you explain how we are deceived in this context? The teacher replies, there are the two obvious deceptions in this that I can speak of immediately here. And I say that this sounds very simple. We have two minds, we have two consciousnesses having nothing in common. It sounds simple. We understand it from the background ideas that form part of our lives as ordinary men and women. As you have said, consciousness, conscious mind and unconscious mind, conscious mind and subconscious mind, and so on. It is part of New Age thinking and so on. However, this is deceptive, and there are two things I can immediately say about this. The first is quite simple, because when we take, as you have said, Freud, he speaks of the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. And when we take Jung, he speaks of the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And this has continued, this, as I say, is part of the background of our ordinary life. However, what I want to say and point out is that these notions, this everyday idea, shall I put it that way, this everyday idea that we do have two conscious minds, it includes an assumption that is quite opposite to Gurdjieff's teaching. And the assumption that is made is that the conscious mind that Freud is talking about, that the conscious mind that Jung is talking about, that the conscious mind as an ordinary man or woman we might understand as being our conscious mind, this mind is taken as if this is us. And then the other mind is taken as some sort of background to this, some sort of helper, something that maintains this, it maintains us in our conscious mind. It is like a lieutenant or an adjutant. And that the conscious mind is us. Now Gurdjieff is saying the complete opposite to this. For Gurdjieff, the fundamental aspect of this in his teaching is that our conscious mind, we have two minds, it's a structural situation, we have two minds having nothing in common, but our conscious mind is not us, it is a false mind, and it is the other mind in us that is us. So Gurdjieff is teaching that we have two consciousnesses having nothing in common, which we think, oh yes, I understand that, that's part of the background to ordinary life. We have two minds. But in fact, Gurdjieff is saying something completely different, because he's saying that the conscious mind that we have is actually the false mind, it's not us. And this is opposite to our ordinary ideas about conscious mind and unconscious mind, conscious mind and subconscious mind. So that's the first point that's important to make. Gurdjieff is saying the complete opposite to our modern ideas about conscious mind and subconscious mind, about the fact that we have two minds and it is a structural situation. Now the second thing I can say, which is as important if not more important, is that Gurdjieff is saying that we are living in the wrong one. That is to say, we are, as I've just said, living in a conscious mind that is a false conscious mind. But within that conscious mind, when we hear, when we read, when we understand that we have two conscious minds, two minds having nothing in common, then the tendency in us is to take that conscious mind that we know, which I've said is a false conscious mind, our tendency is to take that conscious mind that we know, everything that we know as consciousness, and divide it into two. But this is not what Gurdjieff is saying. Gurdjieff is saying we have two minds having absolutely nothing in common. We are living in the wrong one. That means that everything that we take in ourselves as us, everything we take as our conscious mind, is actually a false conscious mind. It's not us. And our true self, the subconscious mind, the true subconscious mind, is a mind that we do not know anything about. So we can't take this statement that we have two consciousnesses having nothing in common and simply divide ourselves up into two. Because this is not what Gurdjieff is saying. Gurdjieff is saying that we are living in the wrong conscious mind. Everything we know is a part of our wrong conscious mind, and we have absolutely no idea of the other mind that is our true conscious mind, because we have two minds having nothing in common. So Gurdjieff is saying that we are living in a false self. Everything we know is a false self. But there is another self in us, completely unknown, that is our true self. So one of the deceptions that can come from this teaching of Gurdjieff, that we have two conscious minds, two consciousnesses having nothing in common, is that we take what we regard as our consciousness and divide it into two. And this is not what Gurdjieff is saying. We have a true conscious mind in us, completely unknown to us. And indeed, we can see from the book In Search of the Miraculous, where Gurdjieff was starting to introduce this idea to Ouspensky, we can see how Gurdjieff is pointing out anomalies in terms of our experience of our conscious mind, which he is saying is a false consciousness. That in fact, within this false consciousness, there are anomalies. There are moments, for example, when we are truly conscious. We don't notice them ordinarily, but as Gurdjieff starts to point them out, there are moments of consciousness of self. Ouspensky points out there are moments when we do remember ourselves. And these are hints at the manifestation in us at times of our true conscious mind, which, as Gurdjieff says, is unknown to us. So there are the two deceptions. I've said this teaching is deceptive. But firstly, it's a structural teaching, of course. Gurdjieff is teaching structure, not psychology. And the deceptions are, the first is that in terms of, let's just make it simple, conscious mind and subconscious mind, we have the assumption that our conscious mind is us. Gurdjieff is saying it's not. Gurdjieff is saying the complete opposite to this. And the second deception is, even if you understand that we have two consciousnesses having nothing in common, we have these two conscious minds, the tendency then is to take everything we know as our consciousness and just divide it into two. As if that's what Gurdjieff means. But that's not what Gurdjieff means. We have a false conscious mind, everything we know as consciousness, which is one thing. Gurdjieff is saying there is something else in us, unknown to us, that is our true consciousness. And is, as I've said, starting to point out to Ouspensky, moments when this unknown conscious mind in us does actually momentarily manifest itself.